This was not to happen. The chromosphere was to be ours. Now all we have is a pile of debris. You, General, are to blame.
He failed to deactivate the radar centers. I believe he is aware of the punishment.
Take him out and shoot him. Get him out of my sight.
Comrade Stalin, the General is not responsible for the destruction of the chromosphere. I personally monitored his actions.
And who then would be to blame? Clearly, the General is at fault.
Niet, comrade. It was you who failed in your actions. You did not inform the General of the other Allied transmitter that was nearby.
Is this true, Kukov? Was there a fourth transmitter?
We did not notice it on the first pass, but yes.
You disappoint me, Kukov. If the chronosphere is not to be ours, then let it be buried with the remains of the Allied dogs. Where are they? Nadia, where's their base of operations located?
We have traced Einstein's signal. He has moved to the coast of England. It must be the center of the command.
General, consider this your redemption. You are to lead the attack on the Allied headquarters. Level it! Destroy forever all traces of the Alliance.
Comrade, Commander...
Continue! Comrade. And you will find yourself on the floor with Kukov. Assemble a strike team! A continental Soviet Union is our destiny!
Welcome back, Commander. So, Stalin's kind of a badass, I guess. You know, just able to snap his subordinate's neck whenever he wants. Pretty telling, though, that even in this timeline, well, I guess more so in this timeline, the Soviets are always willing to just, you know, undermine each other. It's almost as ridiculous as, like, Japan or Germany in World War II. So, of course, this being the final mission in the Soviet campaign, you can see that they kind of throw everything at you, like, really quickly. Thankfully, you're given, what, $20,000, I think it was? Maybe less than that. Maybe 18, 19K, whatever. Point is, you're given a lot of money, so you kind of have an excuse to, you know, take things slow.
Mission saved. Lost.
If only I didn't have to deal with mines all the time. Oh, and yeah, I had to replay this a couple times. Actually, maybe just once. Either way. This is one of those levels you'll definitely have to prepare yourself for the long run. There's a couple ways to speed it up, and admittedly I'm probably a little too cautious this day and age. But damn mines.
Yes, sir. Agreed. Waiting order.
Still, it's one of those things where the last level isn't, I don't want to say challenging, but it's not unfair.
Yes, sir.
I guess the best way to put it is try to compare this level, not necessarily with the Allied last mission, because that one, it's kind of the similar sense. A lot of interesting stuff happens, but more specifically, compare this level with, say, the ending to Tiberian Dawn.
Waiting order.
It kind of shows how far they've gone with everything, really. The last mission of, I guess technically, either side of the campaign in Tiberian Dawn is hard to compare versus this one.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Construction complete. Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Low power.
Affirmative.
Building.
Admittedly, though, maybe it has something to do with the fact that I don't have to go through, valleys of infinitely rebuilding turrets and obelisk of light, or annoying waterways that require you to rebuild bases on,
Yes, sir.
near enemy footing.
Building.
Vehicle report. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir.
Pretty safe to say that you're gonna want some sort of air defense, which is one of the few times, you'll ever really want to invest in it.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting affirmative. Waiting orders.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete.
Oh yeah, and that cruiser on the top right there
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
might have been a reason why I had to restart once.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Comrade, affirmative.
Construction.
If anything, at least building a couple SAM sites will reduce your repair costs on everything.
Acknowledged. Awaiting order. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting order. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders.
Construction complete.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Awaiting orders.
Cannot deploy. Construction option.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Comrade. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Construction complete.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Cannot deploy. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete. Unit
I forget if I build one. Pretty sure I get a helipad in this mission.
Once.
I don't recall it giving me a Chinook though,
cannot deploy.
which is allegedly the Soviet item.
Building. On hold.
After all, the Allies get the APC, so it's only fair if the Soviets get something similar, right?
Vehicle reporting. Awaiting orders.
Base is under attack.
Yes, sir. Waiting orders.
Again, I probably go a little too heavy on submarines here.
Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
To be fair, though, I did expect there to be just as much waterway, and it kind of looks that way on this map as I did the last one. Although on the plus side, it does seem that it's mostly connected, so none of this you're building in one area and then kind of just have to forget you have subs in that pond.
Construction complete.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
This is not so fun.
Report. Yes, sir. Comrade. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative.
Building.
Report. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, affirmative. Acknowledged. Waiting orders. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle report. Affirmative. Waiting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
It's a good thing you're given a lot of money, because you can kind of invest a little bit in, say, a couple Tesla coils.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unlike a certain somebody.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Vehicle report. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
And by now, you're probably well accustomed, if not from the Allied campaign, then from prior missions here, that maybe the AI is gonna drop a couple stuff behind you.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Construction complete.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Vehicle reported.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
As we've seen so far, the AI has a nasty habit of sending things to the far west of our base, landing stuff almost directly in our base, and then doing the annoying little drop on the southeast.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Not to mention that I'm fairly certain they usually bring up a couple units just from the northwest as well,
Awaiting orders.
rather than directly west.
Awaiting orders.
Select target. Reinforcements have arrived. Unit lost.
As always, it's
Affirmative.
usually worthwhile to send some paratroopers in just to scope out an area.
Construction
Yes,
complete.
sir.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Materially, or I guess point-wise, we don't really gain much for wasting I think only 3 paratroopers landed. But you don't really gain much. However, it does appear that where they landed was pretty much the entire power generation area of the Allied base.
Reporting.
So it kind of gives you an idea as to how useful it might be to target that.
Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Waiting orders. Affirmative.
Construction complete. Spy plane ready. Cannot deploy. Construction options. Select target. Building. Building.
Sadly, the waterway doesn't go completely around the map, it seems.
Complete. Construction options. Building.
Yes, sir. Vehicle reporting. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
On the plus side, at least I'm making the Allies waste a bunch of money building naval yards.
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
And the cruiser every so often.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Comrade, acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Awaiting orders.
Insufficient funds. Construction complete. Primary building
Vehicle
selected.
affirmative.
You know, sometimes I wonder just what a few units might be doing on the map.
Vehicle reported. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
In their endless chase to shoot an ore truck, they just
Reporting.
kind of wander into the worst possible circumstances.
Cancelled. Construction complete. Construction options. Unit ready. Spy plane ready. Select target.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting orders.
Well, that kind of gave us a good idea as to what the enemy base looked like.
Building.
Although it doesn't really seem like there's a direct way to get there, other than those 2 bridges. And the what? Sure. I mean, I won't say no, AI.
Unit ready. Select target.
Now, I'm not 100% on this, but I'm fairly certain that the AI never rebuilds walls.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Oh, and this is sort of what you have to do. Or at least it's the best sort of example I think I'll ever be able to manage.
Ready and affirmative. Yes, sir. Very well. Affirmative. Very well. Very well. Very well. At once.
Unit lost.
Agreed. Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Vehicle reported. Yes, sir.
Lost.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
So yeah, while it's possible to have a more or less direct route into the enemy base, it's 2 bridges, and honestly, we've seen enough shenanigans from the Allied AI that I'm not gonna bother risking that. On the plus side, though, there seems to be a mini base or forward post for the AI, so you've got at least something that you can make out of that. Say, I don't know, capturing a building. I guess if you're playing this the smart way, or if you had, more experience, smart money's probably on not destroying the bridges and just trying to go all out for that middle base. But, I didn't really feel like risking it. Or maybe it was something along the lines of, like, I grew up with this sort of tactic, so I'm just gonna use that way. Also, these drops are super annoying. The problem ends up being that because they drop units on the far east, basically south or middle of your base, and you got a bunch of units that come in from the west in 2 different locations, you kind of have to be able to split all your defenses equally, which, I mean, let's face it, never really works. You can generally expect to see only medium tanks come directly from the south, only artillery coming directly from the west, and a mix of the 2 either from the northwest or southeast. Although I think northwest usually focuses on artillery only, but I tend to forget exactly what they have. Point being, you should kind of build around what you'll see. Like that time when they brought medium tanks to the west. Although I feel like that's more, units that are coming from the enemy base than anything else. I'm not quite sure why there's so many units there. I would have assumed all those rocket infantry would have moved out and attacked me, but
Select target.
whatever.
Select target.
So, if you're wondering why I used parabombs on the middle base before,
Select target.
that's why. Because you can kinda guesstimate where units will come from. Like a parabomber, I don't think it ever
Unit lost.
really changes its direction from where it's spawning in. I'm probably wrong on that, but,
Building.
it's one of those things that's just really hard to judge. And frankly, it's kind of frustrating. Parabombs don't regenerate or recharge as quickly as one might think, so
Unit ready.
when you whiff on it 99% of the time, you gotta weigh your options. As I've stated before, though, I think it's something that's easier to judge if you're playing on easier difficulty, or on the easy difficulty. Or maybe I just had like some unnatural ability when I was a kid to manage to get them synced up well enough that I could generally get a good parabomb strike off just about every time.
Affirmative. Echo report. Affirmative. Echo report.
Or maybe it just had something to do with, the planes were faster and the enemy is not quite as competent to take them down.
Construction complete.
And that's usually why I hesitate around destroying buildings if they still have power. You don't want to accidentally repower AA guns.
Target.
Gap generators aren't that big of a deal.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting for affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Oh.
On hold. Cancel. Building.
I hate cruisers. You don't ever expect to be on the receiving end. Until you play the Soviet campaign, that is, and then, all hell kind of breaks loose.
Options.
Thankfully, though, the cruiser seems to be in a bad angle, so it just constantly misses my refinery. Wouldn't have it any other way, really.
Building. Cancel. Building. On hold. Cancel. Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building. Construction complete.
Comrade. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yeah, exploiting bad AI to
Building selected.
not lose a mission.
Report
Probably like 40, 50 minutes in by now.
acknowledged.
Building.
Report knowledge.
Spy plane ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building.
Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Now, if you really wanted to, you could play this where you never really have to worry about anything on the middle map, just by destroying the two bridges. You know, capture a building, set up some helicopters or whatever, and
Construction.
you've basically got something that'll never get touched. Mind you, you might have to kill a couple extra naval units to do that, but still.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
It's also some nice real estate to put down a couple more power plants. Because, well, I think anybody could tell that Tesla coils are a little expensive in that department.
Report affirmative.
These are basically insurance so that the AI doesn't rebuild, say, a ton of Apaches.
Complete.
Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Seriously, I don't care what resolution you're at, that one camo pillbox is kinda impossible to see.
Acknowledged.
Construction
Awaiting
complete.
orders. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
I mean, it's a good thing that the developers made it so that if you mouse over something, it gives you that selection icon.
Cannot deploy.
Otherwise, yeah, there's some buildings out there it'd be kinda tough to deal with.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction
Report
complete.
acknowledged.
Building.
Maybe someone should make a mod where camo pillboxes shoot dogs or something.
Construction complete.
Awaiting.
Although maybe not dogs that explode into nuclear strikes.
Lost.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
That's probably just sensible though.
Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. 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 Yes, sir.
So this is kind of an annoying bit. Because I was kind of hoping I wouldn't have to deal with this. Not the rocket infantry, that is.
Construction complete.
Awaiting orders.
Building.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
My spy plane discovering an island, I figured maybe there's something there that's triggering, or that triggered a cruiser to show up.
Yes, sir.
So I'll send all my subs there, and they'll be, you know, the rear guard to make sure I don't just lose outright. But that area doesn't connect to any other water, so you know, having moved up my mammoth tanks, which can take a great deal of punishment, they're not going to stand up against a cruiser. So to then suddenly see a cruiser up north, you know, it's a little annoying. Basically, it's just a really effective like roadblock.
Building.
Awaiting orders.
Select
I will admit, it's funny seeing islands like this with a ton of money on it.
target.
Like, unless you're really desperate, or just, you know, have that much time on your hands, you're not gonna send a transport with 5 ore trucks to load up ore and then transport them all the way back to load into your refinery. Admittedly, it's not like there's, 15 separate loads or whatever of transports, but, I don't know anybody who wants to do that all the time. And yeah, here's the parabomb thing. Again, it spawns in a slightly different direction. So, good luck being able to guess just how long it takes.
Lost.
Because, again, the parabombs just do nothing.
Reporting. Affirmative.
If it sounds like I'm frustrated with them, I mean, I kinda am.
Affirmative.
Building.
Awaiting orders.
It's not often that you get a power that,
Yes, sir.
it just feels useless. I guess in the same way, it's the same sort of feeling I have with the Chronosphere, and to a lesser degree with the Iron Curtain. They're all cool abilities, they all do something that is,
Reporting.
unique, and in their own right, and in their own time, can be rather effective. But usually that own time, how effective they are, is highly dependent on a number of factors. The Chronosphere only being able to transport one unit, the Iron Curtain only being able to protect one unit,
Target.
it just means that, thankfully when you're against the AI, you don't have to necessarily worry about,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
say, the AI changing from one target to another.
Unit lost.
Because, let's face it, if you were playing against a human player, if you had anything else but one tank, or one unit,
Yes, sir. Very well. Affirmative.
your enemy player is just going to target that.
Building.
So instead, you just kind of make do, I guess.
Construction complete. Unit lost. New construction.
So yeah, you end up having these single target abilities, pair of bombs excluded, of course, but that seems so situational that you kind of have to wonder, would you have lost or won without it? I bet that, yeah, you'd win regardless of if you had that special ability or not.
Building.
Also, it doesn't seem that having to capture a tech center, an allied tech center, is what gives you the GPS. Just building one is fine.
Vehicle reporting.
I kind of feel like that cheapens it, because you could just capture one, or just build one whenever if you capture a construction yard. Usually tech centers are, special enough for the enemy base that you kind of have to work towards it. Capturing it just makes it feel that much better.
Building. Building. Unit ready. Building. Construction
Reporting.
complete.
Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
So, time and time again, it doesn't seem that parabombs or paratroopers are ever really going to be efficient enough to take out that power plant area.
Acknowledged.
So, why not use allied tech against allied buildings?
Vehicle report. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Reporting. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Report. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting.
Building. On hold. Cancel. Building. Unit ready.
This is also sort of the point where it's more helpful to not destroy the bridge. Usually if you're attacking the middle base in the first place, you've got a sizable force. You have something to actually threaten the AI with. So if you capture a couple buildings and they send something as a retaliation to panic or whatever, you generally have something in place to already be there and defend.
Vehicle reporting.
Which then just makes the follow-up attacks where, if... I don't see why you wouldn't capture the construction yard, but unless you don't, you have an easy way to destroy any sort of allied building that's in the way, like, say, these turrets, that would be able to threaten destroying the bridge by themselves. On top of that, you don't quite need anything... Like, you don't really need to destroy the bridges. And if you've got a construction yard or any building here, you can easily just build to the other side of the island and build a sub-pen or naval yard there.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
Which then just makes it so that you don't quite need to destroy any bridge except one to get at some units.
Yes, sir.
Although I guess you could always go the helipad and helicopter / Air Force way.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
And while it was also a little subtle,
Report.
it might be it's probably a really good indication of how things are going if the Allies are having their ore trucks come to my side of the map to grab any sort of income.
Construction
Yes, sir.
complete.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yeah, I was kind of getting tired of Allies just, popping into existence and threatening how I'm going to progress in the level.
Sniper.
Affirmative.
Selected target.
Report.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle report. Affirmative. Vehicle report. Affirmative.
And with our GPS satellite, we can see, well, obviously everything. There's not too much left.
Reinforcements have arrived.
I can only imagine that this western base is kind of another opportunity for the human player to capture a construction yard or, effectively get yourself a closer foothold.
Unit lost. Unit lost.
Report.
It's a little annoying to get to when you look at all the various artillery and turrets there, and obviously the cruisers.
Course. Reporting.
Silos needed.
Acknowledged. Waiting orders.
So yeah, if you happen to have some Air Force, you can easily just use them to destroy the various cruisers on the map, as long as you also kill the power. I mean, there is a significant number of AA turrets around.
Building.
Affirmative.
Funnily enough, the Allies have another unit that they probably shouldn't at this point in the game.
Yes, sir.
Unit
You'll notice that there's a smaller vehicle just slightly north and west of those cruisers. It kinda, sorta, if you squint your eyes real hard, looks like a mobile gap generator. But
building selected.
it's also clearly not one of those. If you're curious and don't feel like being spoiled on anything we might see in the little bit of a future, it's a mobile radar jammer, although technically just called the radar jammer. It's a Soviet-only unit, so I don't know quite why the Allies have them. Basically, its purpose is it's the Soviet version of the gap generator in a way. Whereas the mobile gap generator can produce fog of war so that you can't see anything, basically covering its tracks and anything that travels with it. The radar jammer has to get within a certain distance of a radar dome. If it does so, it completely scrambles the radar on the top right of the map. Until you actually find and then subsequently destroy that radar jammer, it's gonna be like that for the entirety of its life. It doesn't seem like it'd be really powerful, but in its own right, it's useful. I don't want to say groundbreaking or anything, because it seems a little strong, but it's hard not to see the value in killing the radar for an enemy team. I was really hoping that you could take out certain portions of bridges, regardless of where they are, on the bridge. I don't want to call it a sprite, but, basically on its construction. But there, unfortunately, are certain areas that absolutely will spawn, I guess, a support or a strut. and makes it impossible to cross. Thankfully, you only really need one tile to be able to do anything. It's pretty much why I say, like, I'm probably a little too cautious with my stuff. I'm sure even, you know, 2/3 of my current Mammoth tank army would have been fine. Like, more than fine, really. Oh, and there's still some destroyers in the bottom right. It seems that if you kill the cruiser, they just go on with whatever pathing they're supposed to have, which takes them to that corner.
Awaiting affirmative. Yes, sir. Reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledge.
Ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
I guess that's like the only time I'll ever like truly show a stroke of genius with the Iron Curtain, using it to save a cruiser at the last moment.
Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's not fabulous or anything, but hey, cruisers cost a lot of money.
Sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Awaiting orders. Reporting. Acknowledge. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
Silos needed.
Vehicle reporting.
Silos.
Why do I feel like this Apache thing has happened to me before?
Base is under attack.
I guess it's true what they say, the more things change, the more things stay the same.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle report. Affirmative. Awaiting vehicle report. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Yes, acknowledge.
Silos needed.
Yes, sir. Awaiting.
Man, even cruisers can't take out helicopters. Pretty OP.
Acknowledge.
Building. Silos
Vehicle
needed.
reporting. Yes, sir.
You know, synchronized Tesla coils is kind of funny sometimes.
Reporting at once. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledge.
Construction
Awaiting
complete.
orders. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting.
Sometimes you gotta figure that Apache pilot must be taking the piss out of everybody.
Construction complete.
Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledge.
Like, maybe this time he'll land. Oh, got you again.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Always dangling that carrot for you.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
I don't know why, I was just mad at that house, I guess.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Mission accomplished.
Amazing, these English, how quickly they adapt. They must truly have been crying out for our victory. They have abandoned their old rulers faster than rats, leading a sinking ship. We have done what no one else has dared. The Soviet Union stretches across the entire continent. We have liberated Europe at last. It's time to celebrate. Tea? Well, why not? When in Rome. Excellent. General, you have covered yourself in great honor. I will see to it personally that you are very well taken care of. Nadia, this tea is truly excellent.
Thank you. I prepared it myself.
Poison? You bitch!
You bastard pig! You will never touch me with your filthy hands again! Well, General, this temporary chaos in Europe will only help to fuel the Brotherhood's cause. For centuries we have waited to emerge from the shadows, and now we will make ourselves known. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and took up residence in the land of Nod. You have done well to serve us, and for that, you should be rewarded. We estimate that the Brotherhood will tire of the USSR in the early 1990s. Until then, you will keep the peace. Fight our battles where you must, and you will remain our loyal and obedient servant for the foreseeable future.
The foreseeable future. Comrade Chairman, I am the future.